The studio lights were too bright, always too bright. They hummed a low, constant drone. It mixed with the hum of the amps, made a sound that got in your head and stayed there. Art hated it sometimes, he loved it others. Tonight, it was just a sound, a backdrop to the quiet tension in the room. They had a new song. A big one. Everyone knew it. The singer, he stood there, tapping his foot. He looked eager. He always looked eager. He had that kind of energy. It could fill a room. It could fill a stadium. Art watched him. He saw the fire in his eyes. He heard the words the singer had been humming. Art held his guitar. It felt heavy in his hands. It always felt good, like an extension of him. But tonight, it just felt heavy. The wood was smooth, the strings cool. He ran his thumb over them. A faint metallic whisper. The songwriter, a quiet woman, had brought the song in. She spoke in a low voice. She told them about the idea, a place, a lonely place. For people with nowhere else to go. For people whose hearts were broken. She said the words were like a poem. A sad poem. Art listened. He heard the lyrics. He felt them. They dug into something deep inside him. A place he usually kept locked up. A place that was raw and sore. He thought of Eleanor. Eleanor. Her name was a whisper in his mind. It always was. Every day. Every song. Every quiet moment. She had a laugh that was like wind chimes. Bright. Clear. And a smile that could melt snow. He remembered it always. He could close his eyes and see it. See her. They met when they were kids. Just teenagers. He was playing guitar in a dusty old hall. It wasn't even a real gig, just a practice. She walked in with a friend. She stood in the back. Oh, she listened. He saw her. He couldn't stop looking. Afterward, she came up. She said his music sounded like rain. A good rain. He liked that. He'd never thought of it that way. He just played what he felt. They started talking. They never really stopped. He played for her all the time. He wrote songs for her. Simple tunes. Melodies that hummed of hope, of futures, of shared dreams. She was his biggest fan. She'd sit in his small room. Just him and his guitar. She'd close her eyes, her head tilted. She'd just listen. Sometimes a tear would trace a path down her cheek. But it was a good tear. A tear of connection, of understanding. He loved her with all he had. Every beat of his heart. Every note he played, it was for her. It was a simple love, a deep love. It filled his world. Made it bright. Made it worth living. They had plans. Big plans, small plans. A little house with a porch swing. Maybe a dog. Maybe kids. He'd play music. She'd teach. They'd grow old together. Watching the sunset, listening to the rain. Then it stopped. One Tuesday. It was a Tuesday. He remembered the day. The sun was out. It was a bright day. Too bright. He was in the studio, working on a new track. The phone rang. It was his brother. His voice was shaky. He kept saying her name over and over. Eleanor. There had been an accident. A truck. A wrong turn. It was fast. Too fast. She was just gone. The world went dark that day. Even with the sun shining. It went cold. It went silent. He couldn't hear anything. Not the music in the studio. Not the voices around him. Just a ringing. A high-pitched, endless ringing in his ears. He dropped the phone. He just stood there. His guitar was in his hand. He still held it. But it felt like wood. Just wood. Dead wood. It had no music in it. He had no music in him. The days after were a blur. A long, gray stretch of nothing. People talked to him. He nodded. He didn't hear them. They hugged him. He didn't feel them. He just felt numb. A heavy, aching numbness that settled deep in his bones. He went to the funeral. He saw her family. Their faces were etched with pain, like his. But his felt different. It felt like a void, an empty space where his heart used to be. He stood by the coffin. He looked at her. She looked peaceful. Too peaceful. Not like Eleanor. Eleanor was never still. Or never quiet. She was vibrant. Full of life. This was not her. This was just a shell. He didn't cry. Not then. He couldn't. The tears were trapped, frozen inside him. A block of ice in his chest. He went home, his small room, her things were still there. Her scarf on the chair, her book on the nightstand. He picked up her scarf. It smelled like her. Faintly, he held it to his face. He breathed it in. It was like a ghost. A cruel memory. He didn't touch his guitar for weeks. It sat in the corner, silent. Covered in dust. It felt like a betrayal to play it, like he was moving on. And he couldn't. He wouldn't. His bandmates called, they checked on him, they were kind. They understood. They told him to take his time. Music would wait. The world would wait. But It didn't feel like it. The world kept spinning. He was just stuck, standing still in the eye of a storm that had torn his life apart. Now he stopped eating much, he stopped sleeping, he just sat, or walked, or stared. His mind replayed every memory, every laugh, every word, every touch. It was a torture, a beautiful, painful torture. One night, the silence became too loud. The emptiness in the room echoed in his head. He looked at the guitar. It stared back at him, a silent reproach, a forgotten friend. He walked over to it, slowly. He picked it up. It felt foreign, heavy. The strings were cold. He tuned it. His fingers felt clumsy. They fumbled. He hadn't played in so long. He tried to play one of the songs he wrote for her. A simple melody, a happy one. But the notes came out flat. Lifeless. They didn't sound like her. They didn't sound like him. They sounded like a stranger. He stopped. He put it down. It was no use. The music was gone. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. He slowly started to live again, eating, sleeping a little, talking a little, but the void was still there, a constant ache, a dull throb. He picked up the guitar again. This time, he didn't try to play old songs. He just let his fingers wander, across the fretboard, over the strings. He didn't think. He just moved. A sound came out. It wasn't happy, it wasn't sad, it was just a sound. A quiet sound, a searching sound. He played it again, and again, it was like he was trying to find something. Something he'd lost, something that was gone. He found himself bending notes, holding them, letting them waver, a long, drawn-out bend, like a sigh, a deep, heavy sigh. It wasn't a planned thing. It just happened. His fingers moved on their own, guided by something inside him. The band started rehearsing again. He went. He sat in his usual spot. The amps hummed. The drums kept time. The bass laid down a rhythm. He played along. He followed the songs, but his heart wasn't in it. Not fully. He was a ghost in the music. Then the songwriter came with a new piece, the one about the lonely place. The place for broken hearts. As the singer sang the words, Art felt a chill. They resonated with him so deeply. Well, since my baby left me, I've found a new place to dwell. It's down at the end of Lonely Street, at Heartbreak Hotel. Lonely Street, Heartbreak Hotel. He knew that street. He lived there. He'd been living there for months, alone with his grief. The singer's voice was strong, full of feeling, but Art heard something else in the words. A deeper pain, a raw edge. The singer was good at acting out emotions. Art was living them. They played through the song. Art played his part, solid, good, technical, but it didn't feel right. It felt hollow. The song was about absolute crushing loneliness, and his guitar sounded too clean. For Train, it wasn't crying, it wasn't weeping, it wasn't screaming. They took a break. Art walked out. He stood outside the studio door. The alley was cool. He breathed in the night air. It smelled of damp concrete and exhaust fumes. He looked up at the stars. They seemed so far away, so indifferent. He thought of Eleanor. He heard her laugh. He felt her touch, and then it was gone. Just a memory. A phantom limb of his soul. A wave of pain hit him, sharp, sudden, like a physical blow. He bent over. He pressed his hands to his eyes. He felt a tremor start deep inside him, and then the tears came, hot, fast. They poured down his face, a torrent he had held back for so long. He sobbed, a deep, racking sound that tore from his throat. It felt like a part of him was finally breaking open, finally releasing the frozen grief. He cried for her. For them, for all the lost futures, for the quiet house, for the porch swing, for the unwritten songs, for the silence that had replaced her laughter. He cried until his chest ached, until his eyes burned, until there were no more tears left, just a raw, hollow ache. He went back inside. His eyes were red, his face was streaked. The other guys looked at him. They didn't say anything, they just gave him a quiet nod. They knew. They always knew. He picked up his guitar. The wood felt warm now, like it had come alive. He sat down. He didn't look at the music sheet, he just looked at his hands and his fingers. The singer started humming the melody. The bass player laid down the rhythm. The drummer kept a soft beat. Art closed his eyes. He heard the words again. Lonely Street. Heartbreak Hotel. He remembered the sound of his own sobs just moments ago. The raw, broken sound. The way his voice cracked. The way his breath hitched. The way his body shook. He brought his fingers to the fretboard. He struck a note. A clear, ringing note. Then he bent it, slowly, deeply, not just a simple bend, but a bend that wavered, that trembled, that almost broke, like a voice on the edge of crying. He pushed the string, up, and then let it linger, shaking, a sound that hovered between a moan and a sigh. It wasn't a clean sound. It wasn't a perfect sound. It was messy. It was real. He did it again, a higher note, a longer bend. He added a vibrato, not a quick, tight vibrato, but a wide, slow one, like a tear rolling down a cheek. Slow, heavy, leaving a trail. The band kept playing, but they were listening to him now, really listening. They heard it! The singer paused for a second. His eyes met Art's. He saw the pain there. The raw, unvarnished pain. And he heard it in the guitar. Art played on. He didn't think about technique. He didn't think about scales. He just thought about the ache in his chest. The emptiness. The profound, heartbreaking loss. He let the guitar become his voice. His own voice. The one that had been silent for so long, he let it wail, he let it weep, he let it scream. In quiet, agonizing bends, in mournful, shaking vibratos, in notes that seemed to hang in the air, heavy with sorrow. He moved his fingers with a new purpose. Each note was a memory, each bend was a tear. Each sustained waver was a broken sob. The music flowed. The song started to take on a new life. A deeper, richer, more painful texture. The lyrics were already sad, but now the guitar amplified them, made them unbearable, made them real. The recording light was on. They were doing a tape. Art didn't even notice. He was lost in the sound, lost in the feeling, lost in Eleanor. He played the final notes, a slow descending line, each note bending, each note fading, each note echoing the hollow space in his heart. The last note died out, slowly, quietly, leaving a vast silence in its wake. No one spoke, not for a long time. The only sound was the low hum of the studio lights, the distant traffic outside. The producer finally broke the silence. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. He said, "That's it. That's the sound. That's what the song needs." Art nodded. He didn't say anything. He just looked at his guitar. It didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt light, like it had shed a burden, like it had spoken for him. He knew what the producer meant. He knew what the sound was. It was the sound of a broken heart. It was the sound of all the tears he had cried in the alley. It was the sound of a love lost, of a future stolen. It was the sound of Eleanor in that song. It went on to be famous. Everyone heard it. Millions of people, they tapped their feet. They sang along. And they heard that guitar, that strange crying sound. Some just thought it was a cool effect. A new trick, but others, the ones who had known real pain, real loss, they heard it. They felt it, they knew what it meant. And Art, he heard it too. Every time he played it. Every time he heard it on the radio. He didn't think of fame, he didn't think of success. He thought of her, and the quiet, heartbreaking sound of his own grief, pressed into the wood and wires of his guitar. Forever. The song was called Heartbreak Hotel.